The sun had not yet threatened to touch the treetops when John Baker Matthews was already up and about. His 72 years weighed on his broad shoulders, but they didn't prevent him from maintaining the rigid routine he had followed for decades. At Hope Springs Ranch, the morning air in Highwood carried a different freshness on that March morning, denser as if nature itself whispered of changes to come. Passing through the kitchen, his eyes lingered on the photograph of Mary, his wife, who had passed away 5 years ago. The golden picture frame reflected the soft light of dawn, and John felt the familiar tightness in his chest. He lightly touched the frame, as he did every morning, and murmured, "Good morning, my old girl. Another day to face." Outside, Pete Garcia, his trusted foreman for more than 15 years, was already separating the mineral salt for the cattle. The tanned man, with features marked by the sun and hard work, raised his eyes when he saw his boss approaching. There was something different in his expression, a restlessness that John rarely saw in that usually calm man. "Morning, Mr. John. I need to talk to you," Pete said, wiping his hands on the cloth he carried at his waist. "Go ahead, Pete. Is it? It's kind of strange to explain, Mr. John. Early this morning, when I came to check on the cattle, I found some enormous tracks on the edge of the east pasture, tracks unlike any I've seen before." John furrowed his brow. "What kind of tracks?" "Big ones, Mr. John, really big. And the strangest thing is that they disappear when they get close to the woods, as if the animal just vanished." The rancher shook his head, trying to dismiss the strange sensation that Pete's words had provoked. "Must be a deer, Pete. Or some wild boar. You know how clever these animals are at disappearing into the woods." "Maybe, Mr. John, but there's something else. The electric fence in Sector 3 is down again. 3rd time this week." That caught John's attention. The electric fence was brand new, installed only 6 months ago. "Let's take a look." The two men walked in silence to the problematic location. The sun was beginning to paint the sky in orange. Hues and the song of robins echoed across the property. When they reached the point where the fence should have been working, John felt a shiver run up his spine. The wooden posts were intact, but they seemed bent, as if something very heavy had leaned against them. The electric wires weren't broken, just displaced downward, creating a perfect passage for a large animal. "What the hell's," John muttered, crouching to examine the base of one of the posts. That's when he saw the marks. 4 deep grooves perfectly aligned carved into the treated wood. Claws, too large for any animal he knew in the region. "Pete, have you ever seen anything like this?" The foreman approached and his eyes widened. "Good Lord, Mr. John. What kind of creature makes a mark like that?" Before John could respond, his cell phone rang in his pocket. Lily's name appeared on the screen, and he sighed before answering. "Hi, sweetheart." "Good morning, Dad. Is everything okay at the ranch?" Lily's cheerful voice contrasted with the tense atmosphere of the moment. "Yes, everything's fine. Are you heading to work?" "Just leaving now, Dad. I have amazing news. Yesterday afternoon we confirmed the presence of a female mountain lion with cubs near our region. It's the first time in 10 years we've documented the species so close to Highwood." John felt his stomach turn. "Mountain lion? What mountain lion, Lily?" "It's wonderful, Dad. This means the ecosystem is recovering. I'm sure she's looking for territory to raise her cubs. It's a fantastic sign for the preservation of local wildlife." "Lily, a mountain lion isn't fantastic at all. It's pure danger. You should worry less about these animals and more about real people." Silence on the other end of the line. John knew his daughter's silence well. It was the same one Mary would make when she disagreed with him but chose not to argue. "Dad, I need to go. We'll talk tonight, okay? Love you." "I love you too, honey." John hung up the phone and looked again at the marks on the post. Pete observed his boss with growing concern. "Mr. John, do you think it could be—" "I don't know, Pete, but let's fix this fence properly and reinforce the entire boundary. If there's a mountain lion prowling around here, it's not going to enter my property." While the two men worked to repair the wires, a strange sound echoed from the corral. It was Tommy, the most stubborn goat on the ranch, bleating in a high-pitched, insistent manner. The animal stood near the gate, staring fixedly in the direction of the dense woods that bordered the property. "What's gotten into that critter?" Pete commented, following the goat's gaze. John also looked in the same direction, but all he could see were trees and shadows. Even so, a strange sensation took hold of him, as if thousands of invisible eyes were watching his every move. The wind changed direction, bringing with it a wild, strong smell that made Tommy bleat even louder. And for an instant, John was certain he saw something golden gleaming among the leaves, something that observed him with ancient intelligence and infinite patience. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit like. Tell us what city you're watching from. We'll continue. The afternoon was weighing heavily on Highwood when Lily Matthews parked her white pickup truck in front of the veterinary clinic. At 32, she carried in her dark eyes the same determination she had inherited from her father, but directed toward causes he would never understand. Her specialization in wildlife had taken her far from the ranch, but love for her homeland always brought her back. "Dr. Lily, the Wildlife Agency documentation about the monitoring project has arrived," said Carla, her assistant, handing her a folder full of papers. Lily smiled as she leafed through the documents. Finally, after months of bureaucracy, she had authorization to install monitoring cameras in the region. If her suspicions were correct, not just one, but an entire family of mountain lions had returned to the vicinity of Highwood. "Carla, I need you to call the university folks. We're going to need at least 6 night vision cameras and 3 field teams for this weekend." While organizing the logistics of the project, her cell phone rang. It was Robert Foster, a biologist and college colleague, but also much more than that for the past 2 years. "Hi, love. How was your day?" "Busy, but productive. Robert, we got the authorization for the monitoring. We can start this weekend." "That's great. But what about your father? Does he know about the plans?" Lily sighed. "I haven't told him everything yet. You know how he is. For Dad, anything related to conservation is a waste of time. Lily, you need to talk to him. The project will involve properties neighboring his ranch. He has a right to know." "I know, Robert. It's complicated. Since Mom passed away, he's become even more closed off to changes. He thinks anything that isn't cattle and pasture is crazy talk." On the other end of the line, Robert took a deep breath. "Do you want me to go with you to talk to him?" "No, honey. This is something I have to resolve on my own. It's a family matter." After hanging up, Lily remained silent for a few minutes, looking out the clinic window. Highwood's main street was busy with the end of the workday, but her mind was flying to the ranch and to the father she hadn't seen in a week. At Hope Springs Ranch, John was finishing dinner alone when he heard the sound of Lily's pickup arriving. His heart always accelerated when his daughter appeared, a mixture of joy and apprehension about what she might bring this time. "Hi, Dad," Lily said, kissing his bearded face. "Good to see you, honey. Have you had dinner? I have beef stroganoff that Martha made today." "I already ate, Dad, but I'll take some coffee." The two sat on the porch, observing Tommy, who continued his strange behavior, staring fixedly at the woods even as darkness approached. "Dad, I need to have a serious conversation with you." John tensed his shoulders. He knew this tone of his daughter's well. "I got authorization for a wildlife monitoring project in our region. It's a unique opportunity to document the return of species that were extinct here." "Lily, don't start. Dad, listen to me. There are concrete signs that we have a family of mountain lions living near our properties. This is extraordinary." "Extraordinary?" John stood up from his chair. "You think it's extraordinary to have an animal that could attack my cattle, my employees, even you?" "Dad, mountain lions don't attack humans without reason. They're looking for territory because their natural habitat was destroyed. It's our responsibility, and our responsibility is to work, produce, create jobs, not play around protecting animals that shouldn't even be here." Lily felt tears burning her eyes but kept her voice firm. "Dad, these animals were here long before us. This land isn't just ours. This land is mine. Yes, I bought it, I paid for it, I worked 40 years to build all this, and I won't let a bunch of city environmentalists tell me what to do on my own property." The silence that followed was broken only by Tommy's insistent bleating, which was becoming more high-pitched by the minute. "Dad," Lily said in a lower voice, "Mum wouldn't think like that." John stopped, as if he'd been punched. Mary had always been the bridge between him and his daughter, the voice of reason that calmed tempers when discussions heated up. "Don't bring your mother into this conversation, Lily. She taught me to love this land, Dad, but she also taught me that loving means caring, not just exploiting." John turned his back on his daughter, looking in the direction where Tommy maintained his strange vigil. "You can do your project, but away from my ranch. I don't want cameras, I don't want biologists, I don't want trouble." "Dad." "It's decided, Lily." At that moment, a sound echoed from the woods. It wasn't quite a roar nor quite a meow. It was something guttural, deep, that made them both shiver. Tommy darted toward the sound, bleating furiously. John instinctively placed himself in front of his daughter, his protective instinct overcoming any argument. "What was that?" Lily whispered. The sound repeated, closer this time, followed by the noise of branches breaking in the dense woods. "Get inside," John ordered, "now." But Lily remained standing, her eyes shining with a mixture of fear and fascination. She knew exactly what had made that sound. And for the first time she understood why her father was so afraid. The pre-dawn hours brought with them a dense fog that covered Hope Springs Ranch, like a cloak of mystery. John awoke sweating, disturbed, by confused dreams where Mary walked through the woods hand in hand with a shadowy figure he couldn't make out. The clock showed 3:30 in the morning, but sleep had departed never to return. He put on his boots and went out to the porch, seeking the cool night air to calm his nerves. That's when he noticed Tommy, standing in the middle of the yard, completely motionless like a stone statue. The goat was staring fixedly at the woods, but there was something different in his posture. It was no longer the aggressive alertness of recent days, but a kind of reverent respect. "What the hell are you doing out there, you stubborn critter?" John murmured, approaching slowly. Tommy didn't move an inch, not even when John positioned himself at his side. The rancher followed the animal's gaze and felt a chill run down his spine. At the edge of the woods, among the shadows of the trees, two golden points shone in the darkness. Eyes, large, intelligent, observing him with a patience that seemed ancestral. John couldn't move. It wasn't exactly fear. It was something deeper, as if he were in the presence of something sacred that he didn't understand. The golden eyes conveyed no threat, but rather a message he didn't know how to decipher. How long they remained like this man, goat, and the mysterious presence in the woods, he couldn't say. It could have been minutes or hours. He only awoke from his trance when Pete Garcia arrived for the morning's work, and the golden eyes disappeared, as if they had never existed. "Mr. John, are you all right?" John blinked several times, as if waking from a dream. Everything's fine, Pete." "You're pale. Do you want me to call someone?" "No need." John looked at Tommy, who was now normally chewing grass as if nothing had happened. "Pete, have you noticed Tommy's behavior lately?" Pete scratched his head. "Now that you mention it, he has been acting kinda strange. Yesterday I saw him conversing. "Yeah, Mr. John," bleating softly like he was talking to someone, but there wasn't anyone around. John felt a knot in his stomach. "Where was this?" "Near the creek, where the fence keeps having problems." At that very moment, 40 miles away, Lily woke up in her apartment in Highwood with a strange sense of urgency. She had dreamed of the ranch, of the woods, and of a female voice calling her name. A voice she knew well, but hadn't heard in 5 years. She got up and went to the window, watching the dawn painting the sky in rosy hues. Her cell phone vibrated with a message from Robert. "Good morning, beautiful. The cameras have arrived. Can we install them today?" Lily hesitated before responding. The conversation with her father the night before still echoed in her mind, but something inside her said she couldn't wait any longer. "Let's start with the neighboring properties. I have a feeling we need to hurry." 2 hours later, Robert arrived at the veterinary clinic with a van loaded with equipment. Tall, dark-haired, with gentle eyes that contrasted with the calloused hands of someone who wasn't afraid of field work, he had known Lily long enough to notice when something was bothering her. "You're tense," he said, kissing her cheek. "I had. Strange dreams all night, and I'm worried about my dad." What kind of dreams? Lily hesitated. How could she explain that she had dreamed of her mother, who seemed to be trying to tell her something important about the ranch and about a responsibility she still didn't understand? Robert, do you believe animals can have a special connection with things we don't understand? He looked at her with curiosity. What do you mean? My dad has a goat named Tommy. Since I was a child, I noticed he was different from other animals, smarter, more aware, as if he knew things. Robert smiled. You know I'm a man of science. Love, but I also know there are many things science still can't explain. Why do you ask? I have the feeling he's trying to warn us about something. Meanwhile, at the ranch, John was riding Ranger toward the creek where the problematic fence was located. He needed to understand what was happening on his property, and he was sure the answers were at that specific spot. When he reached the problematic point, he dismounted and carefully examined the ground. The tracks Pete had mentioned were indeed impressive, large, well-defined, and forming a pattern that led directly to a specific point in the woods. Following the marks, he discovered something that left him speechless. A hole in the fence, perfectly excavated, large enough for a big animal to pass through without hurting itself. But the most intriguing thing was that the earth around the hole was arranged almost artistically, as if someone had taken special care not to damage the roots of nearby plants. What kind of animal does something like this? He murmured to himself. That's when he heard footsteps behind him. He turned expecting to see Pete, but found Tommy, who had appeared silently, and was now observing the hole with what could only be described as approval. The goat approached the opening, sniffed the air, and emitted a low, almost melodious bleat. Then he looked directly at John, and the rancher had the disturbing impression that the animal was trying to explain something to him. You know what's going on here, don't you, you rascal? Tommy tilted his head as if agreeing, and then walked slowly back toward the house, stopping a few times to make sure John was following him. For the first time in his life, John Baker Matthews had the sensation that he wasn't the one in command of his own land. The afternoon sky filled with dark clouds announcing a storm that promised to be violent. Lily and Robert were working on installing the first monitoring camera at the hillside ranch neighboring John's property when the wind began to blow with unusual force. We'd better finish this quickly, Robert said, holding the ladder firmly, while Lily adjusted the equipment. This storm isn't going to let up. From the top of the tree where she was installing the camera, Lily had a privileged view of the region. She could see the boundaries of her father's ranch, the creek that snaked between the properties, and something that made her stop what she was doing. Robert, pass me the binoculars. What did you see? Movement in the woods, near the boundary, with Dad's ranch. Through the lenses, Lily observed a scene that left her breathless. A magnificent mountain lion moved with feline elegance among the trees, but she wasn't alone. 2 cubs followed her, still small, playful, apparently unaware. They were being observed. My God, Robert! It's her, the female with her cubs. Robert quickly climbed the ladder to see as well. Fantastic. 2 cubs. This confirms she's chosen this region to establish her territory. But look where they're heading, Lily said, pointing. Straight for Dad's ranch. At that moment, the first raindrops began to fall, thick and cold. The mountain lion raised her head, sniffed the air, and looked directly in the direction where they were. For an instant, the golden eyes met Lily's through the binoculars, and she had the strange sensation that the animal recognized her. We need to get down, Lily. The storm is coming. As they hurriedly collected the equipment, Lily couldn't get the image of those golden eyes out of her mind. There was something familiar about them, something that awakened a distant memory she couldn't place. At Hope Springs Ranch, John was observing the dark sky from the porch when his cell phone rang. It was Lily. Dad, are you all okay there? This storm is terrible. We're fine, honey. Where are you? At Mr. Hill's ranch installing equipment. Dad, I saw her. Saw who? The mountain lion, with 2 cubs. They're heading toward your area. John felt his heart race. Lily, get out. Off there now, come here. Dad, she's not going to attack us. Mountain lions avoid humans. A lightning bolt cut the sky, followed by a deafening thunder that interrupted the call. The rain began to fall torrentially, transforming the ranch yard into a muddy mess in minutes. John sought shelter on the porch, but noticed that Tommy hadn't moved from his observation post. The goat remained standing in the rain, completely soaked, looking in the direction of the woods as if waiting for something. "Tommy, come. Here, you stubborn thing." The animal didn't move. If anything, he seemed to become even more alert. His ears perked up, catching sounds that John couldn't hear because of the storm. That's when Pete Garcia arrived running, soaked to the bone. "Mr. John, there's a problem in the north sector. The storm knocked down several trees on the access road. No one can get in or out of the ranch. And the cattle? They're sheltered, but one of the trees fell right on top of the electric fence. It's going to be a hell of a job to clean up." John looked toward the woods, where he knew a family of mountain lions was seeking shelter from the storm. With the fence damaged and the road blocked, his property was more vulnerable than ever. "Pete, gather as many men as you can. We're going to need to do an extra patrol tonight. Even with this rain, Mr. John, especially because of the rain." Meanwhile, Lily and Robert managed to reach downtown Highwood, but the streets were already flooded in several places. Lily's cell phone couldn't complete calls, and she was increasingly worried about her father. "Robert, I need to get to the ranch." "Love, it's impossible. The rural roads must be impassable. My dad is alone there with a family of mountain lions looking for shelter, and the electric fence probably damaged by the storm." Robert held her hands. "Lily, your father knows that land better than anyone. He knows how to take care of himself." "You don't understand. Something is happening there, something beyond what we can see. My mother always said that land held secrets." "What kind of secrets?" Lily hesitated. How to explain the dreams, the sensations, the growing certainty that her family had a special connection with that region. "Robert, my great-grandmother was Native American, from the Cherokee tribe. My mother used to tell stories about how our family had always been guardians of that land, not just owners. And you think this is related to what's happening?" "I know it is, and I'm afraid my dad is facing something he's not prepared for." Team. The ranch, the storm reached its peak around midnight. John was making rounds around the house when he heard a sound that made him stop, anguished bleating coming from the yard. He ran to the window and saw Tommy in the middle of the rain, but this time the goat wasn't alone. A shadowy figure was moving near him, too large to be any domestic animal. John grabbed his most powerful flashlight and illuminated the yard. What he saw left him paralyzed. The mountain lion was a few meters from Tommy, but she wasn't threatening him. The two animals seemed to be conversing. The mountain lion was emitting low sounds, almost purrs, and Tommy was responding with soft bleats, as if they really understood each other. And behind the mountain lion, John could make out the smaller silhouettes of the two cubs, sheltered under a tree, observing the strange meeting between their mother and the ranch goat. For a moment that seemed eternal, John witnessed something that defied everything he believed. He knew about the natural world. Then the mountain lion looked directly at the window where he was, and John was certain she knew she was being observed. And for the first time in 5 years, he heard Mary's voice whispering in his mind. "It's time to understand, John. It's time to remember. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit like. Tell us what city you're watching from. We'll continue." The dawn after the storm brought a strange silence to Hope Springs Ranch. John woke up on the living room sofa, where he had spent the night keeping watch, and found Tommy standing on the porch, as if nothing extraordinary had happened in the last few hours. "Good morning, you mysterious goat," he murmured, scratching the animal's head, which greeted him with a soft bleat. Pete Garcia arrived early, bringing discouraging news about the storm damage. Several trees had fallen, blocking not only the main road, but also damaging 3 miles of electric fence. "It'll take at least 2 days to clean it all up, Mr. John. And the electric company said they won't be able to restore power until tomorrow." John nodded, but his mind was far from the practical problems. The image of the mountain lion conversing with Tommy remained vivid in his memory, challenging everything he believed about the world. Pete, have you ever seen an animal behave differently when something important is about to happen? The Thai. Foreman scratched his chin. My grandfather always said animals know things before we do, Mr. John. Said they can sense when the earth will shake, when it's going to rain, when change is coming. And do you believe that? Don't know, Mr. John, but I've noticed Tommy's been acting like a prophet lately. While the two men were talking, Lily finally managed to establish communication through the radio at the veterinary clinic. Her voice came through loaded with static, but the concern was clear. Dad, are you all okay there? We are, honey, but we can't get out of here. The road is blocked. I know. I'm trying to organize a team to clear the access. Dad, I need to talk to you about something important. Go ahead. It's about Grandma Judith, Mom's mother. Do you remember the stories she used to tell? John felt a shiver. Judith had been a mysterious woman who spoke of medicinal plants and ancestral connections with the land. Mary always defended her, but he never paid much attention to those superstitions. What stories, Lily? About our family being guardians of this region, about the responsibility we have to the land and to the beings that live on it. Honey, this isn't the time for these. Dad, please listen to me. Grandma Judith always said that one day the land would ask us to remember who we really are. She spoke of a sign, of an encounter that would change everything. John looked at Tommy, who had again positioned himself at his observation post facing the woods. What kind of encounter? She never specified, but she always said that when the time came, the guardians of the forest would return to remind us of the ancient pact. A chill ran down John's spine. Guardians of the forest. The words echoed in his mind like a distant echo of something he had forgotten. Lily, where are you getting these ideas? Dad, last night I dreamed about Mom again. She was in the woods near the creek and there was a large animal beside her, a golden feline. She told me you were about to remember something very important, something she never had the courage to tell you. John's heart raced. What did your mother never tell me? That the land where our ranch stands is sacred, Dad. That our family made a commitment generations ago, and that the time has come to honor it. John hung up the radio, disturbed. He walked to the room he had shared with Mary for so many years and opened her wardrobe, which he had kept intact since her passing. At the bottom, behind the clothes that still held her scent, he found a wooden box he had never opened. Inside the box, he discovered letters, old photographs, and a diary he didn't know Mary kept. With trembling hands, he opened the diary to the first page and read, "For John, who will one day need to understand our true story." The following pages contained detailed accounts of Mary's family, about the Native American heritage she had hidden from him for years, fearing his reaction. There were drawings of medicinal plants, maps of the region with mysterious markings, and stories about the special connection that certain families maintained with the spirits of the forest. But it was in the last entry, dated a week before Mary passed away, that John found the revelation that would change everything. The signs are returning, my love. The mountain lions have returned to the region for the first time in 10 years, and Tommy has been behaving like the ancient animal guardians from Grandma Judith's stories. I know you don't believe in these things, but when the time comes, you'll understand. Our family was chosen to protect this land not just as owners, but as mediators between two worlds. Lily already knows she inherited the gift, but you, my stubborn one, still need to awaken. John closed the diary with trembling hands. For the first time, the pieces were starting to fit together. Tommy's strange behavior, the return of the mountain lions, Lily's dreams, his own growing sensation that something bigger was happening. He left the house and found Tommy in the same place as always, observing the woods. This time, however, John approached and knelt beside the animal. "You're trying to teach me something, aren't you, buddy?" Tommy looked at him with his intelligent eyes, and for the first time in days seemed to relax. He walked slowly toward the woods, stopping to make sure John was following him. "All right," John sighed. "Let's see what you want to show me." As He followed the goat along the path that led to the creek. John had the sensation that he was about to discover something that would change not only his understanding of the ranch, but of who he really was. And for the first time since Mary's passing, he didn't feel alone. It was as if she were walking beside him, guiding him toward a truth that had waited years to be revealed. Tommy led John along a trail he had never noticed before, despite knowing every inch of his property. The path wound between century-old trees, passing moss-covered rocks that seemed to form deliberate patterns. With each step, the rancher felt as if he were entering a different world, where the rules he knew didn't apply. "Where the hell are you taking me, Tommy?" The goat stopped, in front of a perfectly symmetrical circular clearing, where sunlight penetrated through the treetops, creating an almost magical effect. In the center of the clearing was a natural rock formation that resembled an altar, covered with plants and flowers that John didn't recognize. "My God," he murmured, looking around. "How have I never seen this place?" Tommy approached the rock formation and lay down beside it, with the reverent posture of one who respects a sacred place. It was then that John noticed the footprints in the soft ground, not just Tommy's, but also the mountain lion's. The marks overlapped in several layers, as if that place were regularly visited by both animals. He approached the rock formation and discovered something that left him breathless. Ancient carvings in the stone, symbols that seemed to tell a story. They weren't random scratches, but a visual narrative showing the harmony between humans and animals, between the land and its guardians. Mary knew about this place, he whispered to himself, remembering some mysterious outing she would take, always alone, always claiming she was going to talk with the land. A soft sound behind him made him turn. The mountain lion was at the edge of the clearing, observing him with her golden eyes. This time, however, John felt no fear. There was something familiar in that gaze, something that awakened a deep and ancestral memory. "It's you, isn't it?" he said quietly. "The guardian Mary mentioned." The mountain lion took a few steps toward him, moving with a grace that seemed supernatural. She stopped a few yards away and sat down, keeping her gaze fixed on the rancher. At that moment, John understood that he wasn't facing a simple animal. There was intelligence in those eyes, an ancient wisdom that transcended anything science could explain. "Mary was right," he murmured. "You came to remind me of something." The mountain lion tilted her head as if agreeing, and then emitted a low sound, almost a purr, that echoed through the clearing in a melodious way. Tommy stood up and walked until he was exactly between John and the mountain lion, like a mediator between two worlds. The goat looked at the rancher and then at the feline, and John had the surprising impression that he was witnessing a formal meeting. It was then that he heard voices approaching through the woods. Lily and Robert had managed to clear a path through the obstacles and finally reached the ranch. Dad, where are you?" "I'm here, honey," he shouted back. "In the clearing." "What clearing?" Lily's voice approached. "Dad, there isn't any clearing in that." Lily emerged from the woods and stopped abruptly, followed by Robert, who was equally paralyzed. Before them was a scene that defied any logic. John, Tommy, and a magnificent mountain lion, all in a clearing she swore she had never seen before. "Dad, what?" "Stay calm, honey, don't move. She won't attack." Robert instinctively put his hand on the photographic equipment he carried, but Lily stopped him. "No," she said softly. "This moment shouldn't be documented. It's sacred." The mountain lion looked at Lily with what could only be described as approval, and then turned her attention back to John. She rose gracefully and walked up to him, stopping so close that the rancher could feel the warmth of her breath. For a moment that seemed eternal, man and animal looked into each other's eyes. John felt as if he were being examined, judged, evaluated by a superior intelligence. And then, something extraordinary happened. The mountain lion gently rested her head against John's chest, a gesture of trust and acceptance that deeply moved him. Tears began to roll down the rancher's wrinkled face as he instinctively extended his hand and touched the golden fur of the animal. "I understand now," he whispered. "You're not an intruder. You're part of this land, just as we are." The mountain. Lion moved away and made a sound that almost seemed like a sigh of relief. Then, she walked to the rock formation and, to everyone's amazement, disappeared among the stones as if she were a spirit dissolving into nature. Tommy bleated softly and also headed for the exit of the clearing, but not before looking at John, with what could only be described as pride. "Dad," Lily approached with tears in her eyes, "you found the sacred place. Tommy brought me here. He knew I needed to see." Robert, still in shock, looked around the clearing. "Lily, this place shouldn't exist. It doesn't appear on any map, any satellite photo." "Because it only reveals itself to those who need to find it," John said, with a certainty that surprised him. "Mary knew. She always knew." "Dad, Mum left a letter for you. It was with my things, but she asked me to only give it to you when you were ready." Lily took a yellowed envelope from her pocket. With trembling hands, John opened it and read the farewell words Mary had written. "My love, if you're reading this, it means you finally found the clearing and the guardians have accepted you. Our family aren't just owners of this land, we're its ancestral protectors. You now understand why Lily chose to work in conservation, why Tommy was always special, why the mountain lions returned precisely now. They came to remind us of who we really are. Take good care of this responsibility, my love, and teach our daughter everything you've learned. With eternal love, Mary." John folded the letter and looked at Lily, who was watching him with hope in her eyes. "Honey," he said with a choked voice, "I think it's time you taught me about conservation." The smile that illuminated Lily's face was the most beautiful answer he could have asked for. 2 weeks had passed since the discovery of the sacred clearing, and Hope Springs Ranch seemed like a completely different place. John worked side by side with Lily and Robert, installing monitoring cameras at strategic points on the property, not to expel the family of mountain lions, but to protect them. "Dad, the North Sector camera captured incredible images last night," Lily said, showing the recordings on her laptop. "The cubs are growing well, and the mother is teaching them to hunt." John observed the images with fascination. Seeing the felines in their natural habitat, without fear, without threat, awakened in him feelings he didn't know he possessed. "They're magnificent," he murmured. "How could I have been so afraid of something so beautiful?" "Because fear of the unknown is natural, Dad. The important thing is that now you've chosen to understand instead of fear." Robert approached with a map of the region in his hands. "John, we received an interesting proposal from the Wildlife Agency. They want to turn part of your property into a private reserve, with tax incentives and technical support. You would maintain ownership of the land, but help create an ecological corridor for wildlife." John studied the map carefully. The proposed area included the sacred clearing and all the territory that the family of mountain lions had chosen. "As home, and my cattle, my production, it wouldn't be affected, Dad. The reserve would occupy only 30% of the ranch, precisely the part closest to the native woods, and you could even develop ecotourism if you wanted." The idea of strangers visiting his property still bothered John, but he was learning to see things differently. "Let me think about it," he finally said. That afternoon, while Lily and Robert worked on analyzing the collected data, John walked alone to the clearing. Tommy, as always, accompanied him, but this time the goat walked alongside the rancher instead of guiding him. Upon reaching the sacred place, John wasn't surprised to find the mountain lion waiting for him. In recent days, these meetings had become routine, as if both needed that silent connection to feel complete. "Hi, old friend," he said softly, sitting on the rock formation. "I came to talk to you about an important decision." The mountain lion approached and lay down near him in a demonstration of trust that still moved him. "They want to turn part of my land into a reserve, to protect you and your family, but also for other families that might come after." The feline observed him with her golden eyes, and John had the impression that she understood every word. "Mary always said this land wasn't ours, that we belonged to it. I think I finally understand what she meant." A soft sound in the woods caught his attention. The 2 cubs emerged from the trees, playful and curious, approaching the rancher for the first time. John remained motionless, barely breathing, as the small felines investigated him with their sensitive nostrils. "You are the future of this land," he whispered, "and I'll do everything to ensure you have a safe home." It was then that he heard familiar footsteps approaching. Pete Garcia appeared in the clearing, but showed no surprise at finding John surrounded by the felines. "Mr. John, sorry to interrupt, but there's a visitor at the house." "What kind of visitor?" "An elderly lady. Said she's a relative of Mrs. Mary and that she needs to speak urgently with you." John furrowed his brow. Mary had no living relatives, at least none that he knew of. "What's her name?" "Sarah. Sarah Clearwater." John's heart raced. Clearwater was the Native American surname of Mary's grandmother, which she rarely mentioned. Sarah. This name appeared in Mary's diary, but always in a mysterious way. "Tell her I'm coming." When John rose to leave, the mountain lion did something unexpected. She walked up to him and again rested her head against his chest as she had done at their first meeting. But this time she remained like that for longer, as if transferring something, energy, knowledge, or perhaps just gratitude. "I understand," John murmured, stroking the golden fur. "We're family now." Back at the house, he found a woman of approximately 80 years, with white hair and eyes that carried the wisdom of decades. She wore simple clothes, but there was a royal dignity in her posture. "John." "Baker Matthews," she said, rising with elegance. "We finally meet. Did you know Mary?" "Mary was my granddaughter of the heart, just as Lily is my great-granddaughter. I am Sarah Clearwater, the last guardian of the ancient lineage." Lily, who had just arrived, stood paralyzed at the door. "Grandma Sarah, but you disappeared 15 years ago, I know. I needed to return to the reservation, fulfill my duties to the people, but the spirits told me it was time to return." John looked from Lily to Sarah, trying to process the information. "Ma'am, I don't understand. You have awakened, John. You've finally accepted your role as guardian. But there's still one thing you need to know, something even Mary didn't know." Sarah approached the window that looked out on the woods. "The mountain lion you found isn't just a female looking for territory. She's the direct descendant of the last great guardian of this region, who disappeared 50 years ago." "What do you mean?" "The guardian mountain lions are special, John. They live much longer than ordinary ones, carry the ancestral memory of the forest, and choose human families to protect the land. The mountain lion you've met is the daughter of the one that protected this region when your parents bought the ranch." John felt as if the ground was moving beneath his feet. "You're saying that she was waiting for you to grow up, mature, to be ready to take on the responsibility." "The guardian mountain lions are patient, John. They wait generations, if necessary." Lily approached with tears in her eyes. "Grandma Sarah, that means that you were chosen from the beginning. The mountain lion didn't come looking for territory. She came home." Sarah Clearwater opened an old leather bag and took out a photograph yellowed by time. With delicate hands, she gave it to John, who almost dropped the portrait when he saw what was recorded there. It was Mary, still young, smiling next to a majestic mountain lion, but it wasn't just any photo. It was clearly an intimate encounter, with Mary caressing the feline as if it were a domestic animal. "This is impossible," John murmured. "Mary never told me." "Because she promised she would only tell when you were ready," Sarah explained gently. "Mary met Amber, that was the name we gave to the mother of the current mountain lion, when she was only 16. It was love at first sight." Lily approached to see the photograph and her tears began to fall. "Mom knew the grandmother of our mountain lion?" "More than that, child. Amber helped Mary find me when she needed to learn about her roots. It was Amber who taught her the secrets of the land, who prepared her to be a true guardian." John looked at the photo again, and details he had missed the first time caught his attention. Mary was wearing a necklace of seeds he had never seen, and there was a serenity in her young eyes that he would only find again years later, when she fell in love with him. "Sarah," he said with a choked voice, "why did Mary never tell me about this?" The elderly woman smiled tenderly. "John, Do you remember how you reacted when she talked about medicinal plants? About Grandma Judith's myths? Imagine if she had come and said she had a mountain lion friend. John lowered his head, ashamed. She was right. He would have thought Mary was going crazy. But there's more, Sarah continued. Amber was present the day you met John. She observed you from afar when you fell in love, approved the union and blessed the marriage in her own way. What do you mean? Robert, who had remained silent until then, took the laptop from his backpack. John, you need to see this. Analyzing the camera images, we discovered something extraordinary. On the computer screen, Robert showed several night recordings of the property. In all of them, the current mountain lion appeared walking through specific locations. Near the house where John and Mary had lived, around the grave where Mary rested, and always passing by the main gate as if she were patrolling. She's been protecting you for years, John, Lily said softly. All those times you felt you weren't alone after Mum's passing, you really weren't. John felt as if the world was spinning around him. You mean that she took over the family's protection when Mary passed away, Sarah confirmed. That's what the guardian mountain lions exist for, John. To maintain balance, protect those who were chosen, ensure that ancestral wisdom isn't lost. At that moment, Tommy appeared at the door of the house, bleating softly. But he wasn't alone. The guardian mountain lion walked calmly by his side, followed by the two cubs that played between the goat's legs. My God, Robert whispered. It's as if they were a family. Sarah stood up and walked toward the mountain lion, who greeted her with a low, affectionate purr. Golden, said Sarah, stroking the feline's head. That's what Mary named her as a cub in honor of the golden color of her eyes. Golden, John repeated, and suddenly a memory hit him like lightning. Mary used to talk to herself in the garden, especially in recent years. He always thought they were imaginary conversations, a way of dealing with loneliness. But now he remembered that she always mentioned this name. Golden, take good care of him for me. Golden, he doesn't understand yet, but he will. Golden, promise you'll protect our family. She was talking to the mountain lion all along, John murmured, tears finally overcoming his resistance. And Golden was listening, Sarah confirmed. That's why she brought the cubs here. This land is their home, just as it is yours. It's time to make this union official. Lily approached her father and held his hand. Dad, what Grandma Sarah is proposing is that we sign the agreement with the Wildlife Agency, but not just as an ordinary reserve. We want to create the first ancestral guardians reserve in the United States. What does that mean? Robert opened a folder with official documents. It means you wouldn't just be a landowner who ceded land for conservation. You would be officially recognized as an ancestral guardian of this region, with specific rights and responsibilities. Your family would have legal protection to maintain traditions, and the wildlife would have guaranteed protection forever. John looked at Golden, who approached him with her cubs. The small felines, now more confident, began to play around his feet, while Tommy observed with approval. Mary would be proud, Sarah said softly. Did she know this would happen? She knew you would find your way, John. It may have taken longer than expected, but she never doubted that you would discover who you really are. John knelt and extended his hand to Golden, who rested her head in the rancher's palm. The cubs approached too, and for the first time since Mary's passing, John felt that his family was complete. All right, he said, his voice choked with emotion. Let's sign the papers. Let's do this right. Lily hugged him tightly, and Robert smiled with satisfaction. Sarah murmured a prayer in her ancestral language, while Golden purred softly. 3 months later, Hope Springs Ranch had officially become the first ancestral guardians reserve in the United States. Researchers from across the country visited the place to study the unique harmony between conservation and tradition, between science and ancestral wisdom. John, now recognized as an official guardian, received groups of students and explained how respectful coexistence with wildlife was not only possible, but necessary. Lily had become the scientific coordinator of the reserve, and Robert documented the entire integration process. Tommy, always present at the lectures, had become a small celebrity, known as the goat who saved the rancher. But John knew the truth. Tommy hadn't saved just him, but an entire lineage of guardians that had almost been lost. And every night, when the sun set over the ranch, John walked to the sacred clearing. There Golden waited for him with her cubs, now grown and ready to take on the protection of future generations. Sitting on the rock formation, where everything began to make sense, John looked at the stars and whispered, "Thank you, Mary, for teaching me that true love sometimes waits a lifetime to be understood." And in the silence of the night, he could swear he heard her response in the wind that shook the ancestral tree.